Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all having a great day. Welcome to yet another Brony Debates Live. Today, we are going to be talking about the parental relationships in Friendship is Magic, whether or not they're believable, any good, whether or not they're healthy. So thank you all for joining me. Right before we get to it here, I've got to make sure we give our shout outs because I'm extremely grateful as always to have you guys watching, and especially to all of my patrons who support me financially and make these streams and my content in general possible. I'm especially grateful to the people at the $10 and up tier. These guys are Autoknight, Sodden Girder, Senko, Jennan Kellogg, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, Mike's Geek World, the sorry, I got a frog in my throat tonight, and the Equestrian City Heroverse series. Alright, I got through it. If you want in these live streams, if you want to make suggestions for topics, I would love to have you. I just need you to be a member of the Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Every little bit helps, and I'm grateful for all of it. Now then, on to the topic. Joining me tonight is Concert Cruizer. How are you doing tonight, Cruizer?
Doing good. This is the Cruiser coming to you live.
Yeah, there we go. And joining us again for the first time in a little bit is Dev. Deverer specifically. How are you doing tonight, Dev?
여러분은 안녕하세요. 오늘은 어떻게 입니까? 말도 보내시는 좋아요.
Konnichiwa.
일본어 안 말할 수 있습니다.
Yo soy frick.
스파인어 말할 수 안 해요.
Alright, I gotta get some subtitles for this goofball here. So, how about a translation, my friend?
Okay, first I said hello everyone, and how are you doing today? I like My Little Pony. I don't speak Japanese, I don't speak Spanish.
Neither do I. I used to, but I don't anymore. So I'm glad we're doing all right. So what we're gonna do tonight is we're just gonna go down the main six and see how well these guys are, pulling off their parental relationship. So I think the first set of parents that we saw and interacted with in the show was Rarity's parents. I'm trying to remember their names here. I believe they were Cookie Cutter or something along those lines. I should have looked this up beforehand. I'm really bad.
Hondo Flanks and Cookie Crumbles.
Cookie Crumble. I was close. I was very close. Yes, but Hondo Flanks, I remembered him as well. So, goodness, they were interesting characters. They seemed pretty eccentric. Definitely did not have Rarity's keen eye for fashion. And those accents, my goodness. So, Cruiser, what do you think about those guys?
I love the fact that they remind me of people who, or older folks who would actually retire and move to Florida. That's just where I'm from. I see these people all the time. They live in, cities and condos, and they just do touristy things all the time.
Oh yeah, and don't you know they come with those Hawaiian shirts with the collars?
And the, I just had it. The point is that they got a lot of character development within 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's what good writing will do for you. But how do they? Now we didn't really get a whole lot of information about them. We just sort of got a sense of what their characters are like. They're kind of outlandish. The first time we saw them, they were jetting off to some vacation and dumping Sweetie Belle on Rarity for a couple of weeks. So there was that. But what do we think Rarity's relationship with her parents is like, given what we saw?
I would say, based on the idea that they are a bit outlandish and out there, And considering that Rarity doesn't really even hesitate all that much, aside from, I guess, what was it? Just the initial sudden dropping, have to work in your schedule and all that. Then suddenly realizing that
she lost track of her own schedule.
Yeah, so like, I would describe her relationship as loving, if a bit still disconnected in some areas, but she ultimately, at the end of the day, still loves and cares for her family, especially because in that episode, Sisterhood Social, I believe it was, she realizes that her own relationship with her own sister is starting to fall apart a bit, and she wants to make sure that stays healthy. So I would imagine she feels the same way about her own parents.
Yeah, Cruiser, do you have anything to say to that?
I would say the relationship is acceptable. There is still somewhat of that whole I have embarrassing parents thing, but just nowhere near as bad as Rainbow Dash, who we'll get to later.
Yeah, so she definitely would not take her parents to any kind of social event. Because they're very unrefined. It makes you even wonder how Rarity turned out the way she did in the first place, because she's the only one out of the main 6 that doesn't really have anything in common with not only her parents, but the rest of her family and most of her friends. So it really, for those who are in the debate of nature versus nurture for how kids are gonna turn out, that's probably the biggest argument for nature, for how people turn out in comparison to where they come from. Because Rarity is clearly one of those people that was going to be the way she was regardless of what happened in her youth. Because otherwise there's no reason that she would not have come up emulating them and talking like this with that my goodness, I can't even do it consistently, that northern midwestern accent. And it's kind of weird in a way that Sweetie Belle has nothing in common with her parents either, mostly because she spends most of her time trying to emulate Rarity.
When it comes to Sweetie Belle, it seems like she admired or looked up to her sister more than she did with her parents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got a quick thing here from Tio Vela saying someone is echoing really hard.
Interesting. I wonder if there's something I can do about that.
Wait, hang on a second. It might be me. Hang on.
Are you wearing headphones?
I am, but I think this is an old headphones. Hang on.
I'm sorry about that, guys. Thank you for bearing with me.
Try again.
Alrighty then.
No, what? I don't know what. Hang on, let's just switch to push to talk.
Okay, well, now that we've got that underway here, does the chat have anything to say about this, Cruiser? What do they think about Rarity's parents?
Okay, well, from Rusty Helm 93, what bugs me is that Rarity's parents are the only ones that were never developed.
I can agree with that. We've only seen them once, maybe twice, 3 times.
If you count the comics, yeah.
Yeah, 3 times if you count the background. And that's what I was saying at the beginning of this. We definitely got a sense of their character, but we never really got any sort of development, like why they're like that, what things are like around the house. How it seems we can't tell if Sweetie Belle actually lives with Rarity or not. They're definitely in Ponyville and they're definitely around. We know that. So I don't think there's much else to say about Rarity's parents.
I think we in One Bad Apple implied that she does live with her parents again, because I think we did see their house. Like you see Hondo flying fishing out of the river, and then I think they cuts to inside that very house.
Yep. Alrighty then. So let's move on then. Let's talk about.
And then actually, I think the other appearance they make Inspiration Manifestation, like Sweetie Belle was with them.
Mm-hmm. I definitely don't have any reason to think that they're not good. As parents, I don't think Rarity would have been able to get her Ponyville business off the ground if there hadn't been some level of support from her parents while she was coming up. Certainly nobody or very few people as kids will continue to pursue something like fashion that they have nothing in common with the rest of their family if their family is actively working against them, or at least that would have been if that were the case, it probably would have been a focus point of Rarity's character at some point in time. So but that's all headcanon. I have no way of confirming that one way or the other. But with that, I think there's not much else to say about those two. So let's
one more thing.
Okay.
Were they present when Sweetie Belle got a cutie mark? I can't remember.
No, they were not.
Must have been back in Florida.
Yep. Must have been out on another vacation. We got the Cutie Mark Crusaders parents just love to go on vacation, sometimes permanently. That's mean, Brony. Why'd you say that? Holy heck. All right, for the third time now. How about Fluttershy? So we've seen Fluttershy's parents. We don't have names for these guys. Holy heck. They are Mr. and Mrs. Shy as far as pretty much everybody is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we think about them, Cruiser?
They actually remind me of my mother. She is very kind, very sweet, very gentle, but doesn't have much of a spine.
Indeed. I suppose I can see that. Anything else you want to say? What about her father?
Oh, you mean Colonel Sanders or Colonel Flutters?
Mustache dude. What is it with these fathers and their facial hair?
I will say he doesn't look like the type of person who would work in a factory. But then again, this is Pony. Just because you think if someone would work in a factory, he would be a bit tougher or stronger. But no, he lets Zephyr Breeze just walk all over him as well.
Mm-hmm. Dev, what do you think?
It's kind of the same thing. It's like they're the parents that are like don't really have a limit to the amount of, they don't really have a cutting off point for when they really need to put their foot down, which I think coincidentally, like Fluttershy went through an episode putting her hoof down, and then suddenly we have her actual parents who don't know how to do that themselves.
Right.
And
so,
as Alfie's the cat just said, they are kind of doormats. So it's like they care, but unfortunately they care on a level that goes a little too far.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we got for their characters, but the real question is whether or not that's believable and whether or not it's a good thing. So what I see in those characters is, and Cruiser was talking about how he doesn't believe that Mr. Shy could be working in a factory, and I'm gonna call on that one. I actually have a family friend up in New York. Very close. This family is very close with my family. I call their daughters my sisters. Worked in a factory. Very similar personality to Mr. Shy. Very similar. Hope someday you get to meet him and see what I'm talking about here. But he was an engineer in one of the factories up there in New York for a long time. He just retired last year, funnily enough. Shortly after that episode came out. Now, what's interesting is that Mrs. Shy said, or one of them said, we're not as assertive as you are, Fluttershy. So Fluttershy is the assertive one. So they definitely, they definitely grew up. That's just we're definitely dealing with two characters that are very similar in personality, and that's what attracted themselves to each other. And then they got Fluttershy, and Fluttershy didn't know how to do anything else, how else to act from being raised in a very demure house. So she, emulated that. And then there's Zephyr Breeze, and they usually say that the second kid is they're a lot more lenient with the second kid, but he definitely realized from an early age that he could take advantage of that, and therefore he did. So here's the question now: have I said anything that we think is wrong, and is that a good thing?
I only have a question of, do they mean she's always been the more assertive one, or just more recently? Because I would argue,
I think more
if we
recently.
have season 1.
Yeah, more recently.
I think if we had season 1 Fluttershy, then no, I don't see that.
I think within universe, when they said that, they were dealing with like a scope of the last few years, because Fluttershy was arguably even worse than them. We're talking season 1, 2, maybe 3. And then she very gradually, over the course of 7 to 9 seasons, however you want to look at it, kind of grew out of that and learned how to be more assertive. That you can't get that in the house that she was living in.
Plus, not to mention, there was that Iron Will episode.
Well, yeah, that kind of started putting things into motion for that character development. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys know anything else, about whether or not Fluttershy's parents are believable, or what do you guys think?
You could say that episode was about putting her hoof down.
The mother is definitely believable. Colonel Flutters, on the other hand, the only kind of fathers I see who are like that are new agey, and he doesn't really come off as new agey.
Interesting. Well,
does he actually work in the weather factory?
Well, he had just retired,
and he works in the cloud factory.
Yeah, he was making clouds. Now, New Age is a very interesting description because the type of person you might be referring to was coming up in the late 1960s to in the 1960s to 1970s, maybe even early 80s, where you saw a lot of New Age, we would call them like hippie philosophies, starting to come out. And one of them was, not disciplining your kids.
Yeah, like you could, like the timeout dad is a better way of putting it.
Yeah, but somebody that was coming up and might have been a teenager to a young adult, and being exposed to that philosophy before they get married, before they have children, and then they adopt that philosophy with raising their children. They would be, they would be the age of our parents right now. So maybe even a little older. So it's definitely not beyond the realm of believability that he's like that. Also, sometimes people are just demure.
Yeah, we don't really know. Like I think I remember a detail about the episode is that that was brought up by the parents. Like the dad has his clouds, the mom has the garden, Fluttershy has their animals. So they all in a way are connected in that they have one thing they care about. And you can argue that, I think one can make the argument that he's passionate about the cloud making, that maybe you don't need to be a tough guy or just like a stalwart guy. It's maybe it's just a whole different line of work, because it's about a craft,
Yeah.
It's not really have to hold up to a standard. It's just a craft he does. So that's maybe why he's demure. But I don't think that really impacts the believability because that's not really a focus. So maybe some other ones, but we'll get to that later possibly. But I would just say that it's not really too big of a deal breaker for me, and especially because he's retired. Maybe he's just mellowed out at the end of his career.
That's definitely understandable, although I don't know how you would have gotten... I think he's been like that the whole time, because I don't know how else you would have gotten Fluttershy. I don't know how else you would have landed somebody like Fluttershy's mother. They're all very similar personalities. So that was my headcanon from earlier. But do we think that's good to have a relationship like that? Because so let me go out here and say this. It's obvious that her parents are very supportive. Because they're willing to take care of a piece of trash like Zephyr Breeze, or the piece of trash that Zephyr Breeze was at the beginning of that episode, is probably the more accurate thing to say. They were willing to take care of that, despite being older, and he should have been grown and left the house by now. And Fluttershy definitely had a good childhood. They were able to put her into flight camp, try to help her learn how to fly. Someone must have gotten her to go to Ponyville to I guess take care of animals. It would have been very hard to take care of all those animals from hanging out in Cloudsdale. And she does better on the ground anyway, if we're being honest with ourselves. But I think that it harkens back to what I've seen with my own family, in that it's actually too supportive. Because now, with the demure way that they raise their kids, Fluttershy did not have the tools to stand up for herself at any point in time. She was never given that kind of conflict and learned how to, or given that kind of advice from her father to stand up for herself, which is, what we saw. And she had to learn how to do that a lot on her own and through her friends when she could. And then of course, where you get that, you're also going to get somebody who's going to take advantage of that day and night. Zephyr Breeze. So Zephyr Breeze, had there been no intervention, would have been like that for forever. And let's face it, parents are not immortal, and eventually they're not going to be able to take care of him anymore. And then what's Zephyr Breeze going to do? He never had a chance to learn, and now he's going to have to go out on the street and freeze to death.
I actually think it's kind of like symbolic in a way, because you think Pegasi with wings, birds will push the babies out of the nest so they learn to fly. Fluttershy actually fell out of Cloudsdale to discover her passion in life, but that probably didn't happen with Zephyr Breeze. In fact, it was probably that falling out and freaking out that allowed her to actually step out, even with the demure nature still holding her back.
And that is exactly what I'm saying. Don't let me win so easily. Cruiser, do you have anything to say about that?
Not really. It just kind of hits the nail on the head. Her parents were just too supportive or did not have a spine.
Man, this is not going to be much of a debate tonight. What does the chat think? Have they been saying anything?
Most of that they agree.
Darn it, it's not entertaining when people agree. Somebody get mad and throw a chair, gosh darn it. Let's move on to Rainbow Dash.
I think this is where we're going to start disagreeing.
All right, Cruiser, tell me what you think about Bo Hothoof and Windy Whistles.
Too supportive. My God, who keeps a baby's first diaper around? I mean, even if you have the most overbearing parents, nobody does that.
I think that was meant to be a caricature for the purpose of comedy within the episode itself. We all know, gosh darn well, nobody normal, nobody sane does that.
But still.
But yeah, so definitely not good there. What do you think, Dev?
I want Rainbow Prism instead of this guy.
Rainbow Prism? Oh,
season 3 pony.
Yeah, I remember. I remember who you're talking about. Yeah, well, he did have the coloration. He just didn't have the body shape. But I would have put that to he's older, or somebody forgot, one of the two.
Or even that it's a flashback, so he still has a younger body still.
Exactly, that's what I just said. Alrighty then. So who do we know that's like that? Do we know people who've been like that with their kids? Anybody?
Well, mine to some extent, just because of health issues that me and my siblings have had. But even then, it was never that bad.
Yeah, I've only ever heard of parents getting like that in the bad sense. I've heard of parents being super supportive of their kids, but it's always in a obnoxious soccer mom helicopter parent kind of thing, where you try to, you're coaching their kids' little league, and you try to make a call, and the call affects them negatively, and they flip out on you or something like that. So that's where I see that a lot, and I've had to deal with parents when I was coaching, and they get super mad, and everything's got to be perfect for their kid, and their kid can do no wrong. So I've never seen it the way that Bo Hothoof and Windy Whistles are. So it kind of doesn't feel very real to me. What do you think, Dev?
I think it's like they're 2 steps below that soccer mom helicopter parenting, because like they're mostly just encouraging her. They're not really like hanging over her shoulder, making sure that she can do no wrong. They're like just way too encouraging and kind of crossing the line into where it's like their public image is not right. Like
they weren't yelling at the ref all the time. You know, when Rainbow Dash didn't win, they weren't up in the ref's face.
This is true.
Yep. So
it's more. It's like, yeah. So like in a way, I actually had like a hang on, I'll get back to that. But
what was that? You clipped out there for a second.
I lost my train of thought. I was gonna let Brony continue.
Okay, yeah. So for these reasons, because I've never seen parents like Bo Hothoof and Windy Whistles, I have trouble registering them as believable. For that, I never see them act stereotypically like that. So the next question becomes, you know, whether or not it's good to have that Rainbow Dash and her parents are like that. So I'm seeing over here in the chat, I just looked over real quick and I saw somebody said, you know, give us a controversial topic if I want something more interesting and controversial. Well, folks, I put it up on Twitter every week. Give me suggestions here.
I give you suggestions, Brony.
Good ones. Cruizer, tell us what you think about that, about Rainbow Dash's relationship with her parents and whether or not that's really healthy. You know, give it to me.
I honestly don't think it is. I mean, sure, Rainbow became the pony she was because of them, and I'm pretty sure someone like Will, he would go, that explains a lot. But even then, with supportive parents like that, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know. I don't think Rainbow would have become the pony she was because of her parents.
It certainly sounds like a double-edged sword. Dev, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, this is kind of line I wanted to go on. Like, it is the kind of double-edged sword, because I think because of all that encouragement, it actually inflated Dash's ego, but at the same time, it did increase her drive to do better. But once she hit around like the Wonderbolts Academy era, where she had to learn professionalism, suddenly the other edge of the sword started to rear its head up, or blade, I should say. And suddenly, once Rainbow actually got back in contact with her parents, she realized the downside to her parent supportive nature, which could look bad for both her image and just the Wonderbolts in general.
Now this is where things get really interesting for me, because like I said, I've never seen parents like Rainbow Dash's before, but with the way that Rainbow Dash came out, I'm not in the least bit surprised that her parents act the way they do. So I agree with what you said, Dev, and I'll expand upon it a little bit. Rainbow Dash, very brash, very confident, cocky at times. There's no way she would have gotten that unless she, even when she was losing, her parents were like, yeah, go do, you're the best, keep it up, keep racing, and having that drive. And also that, there's a bit of natural drive in there as well, that just comes with an individual's innate desires. But there's got to be that support there. And definitely the problem is that once a kid gets past a certain age, they're not going to want that kind of thing anymore. They're not going to want you in the stands as much, cheering that loud, being that obnoxious, because it is going to start to have a social stigma and reflect badly on them, and it's going to be really embarrassing, and then they're going to be less likely to include you in the future, especially if you're not giving them any privacy. Like, what
in
was
the
it? Yeah,
bathroom.
you hang that jacket. Nobody can hang a jacket quite like you, Rainbow Dash. Go! You know that
Towel.
Yeah,
Towel.
the towel, the jacket, whatever it was. You know, yeah, scrub that floor, Rainbow Dash. You know, you don't want that all the time once you get past like age 10, even if. So that's definitely understandable that Rainbow Dash would, after that kind of thing, distance herself from her parents. It's definitely not healthy, though. I don't think it's healthy because now you don't have that relationship. Now you don't have that communication. People need their parents, you know, if we're being real with it. And you got to have it.
I think
what do you guys think?
Dash even admitted in an episode, like, she was always embarrassed by the cheering, but that support did drive her.
Yeah, but even when it was bothering her, she never did anything about it. She just kind of, you know, distanced herself. What do you think?
To the point where she didn't even tell her parents that she was a Wonderbolt.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, that's how bad we're talking here.
I'm not even that bad about communicating life updates with my parents.
I think it's the best way to describe Rainbow's parents. Like I said, they're two steps below like a helicopter parent, but like they're the over zealous parent who wants to always be within your life, but once you are trying to actually want to have your own life, having them always over your shoulders, both one, embarrassing, and two, just a hassle in and of itself, because like you don't want to upset them in a way, because maybe you have that gratitude you have for them for raising you, but at the same time there's just going to be a limit, you know.
Yep. So we're about halfway through the main 6 here, and we've got 15 minutes left. What does the chat think about Rainbow Dash's parents?
There's one person here named Malik Muhammad who said, "My parents are super like that."
Oh wow, that's interesting. Well, I'm glad to know that it exists. I like being wrong.
Although we do feel sorry for you, Malik.
Yeah, that as well. Also, I have a feeling his name might be pronounced Malik, but I'm not 100% sure. One of us is right. What about Pinkie Pie? What about her parents? What do you think, Cruiser?
How the hell did that happen? She had to have been the genetic dice roll.
Yeah, and that does happen sometimes. I mean, we were actually talking earlier about how divergent from her parents' Rarity is, and completely forgot about Pinkie Pie at the time. Just another complete 180 there.
Well, technically, actually, we saw Pinkie's parents first in the series, because like what was it, that episode where we saw the flashback of Pinkie?
Cutie Mark Chronicles, episode 23, I believe.
Yeah, so technically they were the first ones introduced, and we did see a relationship of it. Like they were instantly supportive of her, so we can say that she has a good relationship through and through. It's just when their traditions were threatened by the Apple family, that's when they were starting getting a little heated, but that was never towards Pinkie Pie.
Yeah, and even when Pinkie Pie introduced her idea of fun to the family, they were all for it. They were very receptive. We've definitely known parents like that are just very traditional and very down to earth and very dour. And I couldn't tell you if that's just the way they are or if that's their culture. They're clearly like parodying the Amish culture, but I have not hung out with very many Amish people, so I couldn't tell you.
I used to live in Amish land in New York, so I can tell you this. First of all, that's actually a good comparison because, yeah, they do seem that way. The other, and this actually might even explain Pinkie, now that I think about it, is in the Amish community, there is a tradition called Rumspringa, where they actually allow an Amish youth to go out and experience our lives. They get to experience the cars, the technology, etc. And after a certain amount of time, they actually have to make the decision of whether or not they want to stay with their parents or stay in this culture. And depending on what Ordnung they're part of, if they decide to live in our culture, then they actually separate communications altogether. Some, however, are a bit more liberal and open about it. So maybe that actually explains a few things.
Yeah, and the last time I was hanging out in Amish country was like 2010, and it was in a really small town out in Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half northwest of Philadelphia. So there was a lot of like Amish people out there. There were farms. So it was for this girl that I was dating at the time, and there were Amish farms surrounding her house. So you'd see these buggies going by. But I remember going for a jog out there one time, and I passed by an Amish buggy, and they had a CD player blasting on the. I don't remember what they were blasting because I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that they had the CD player in the first place.
I hope they were playing Amish Paradise.
Oh my God, I would have remembered that if that was the gosh darn case.
Maybe we should swing back before we waste the rest of our time.
Yeah, good call, Dev. So, what I was getting at here was Pinky definitely didn't do, they didn't play it that close to the Amish thing. She left because she wanted to learn more about, what it takes to throw parties and get people to laugh and spread happiness and things like that. And she just couldn't do it on the rock farm. It's extremely isolated. There's nobody there but her sisters and her parents. But she does come back. She does still have a very good relationship with her parents and the rest of her family. She loves her sisters. She helps out. She helps them out when she can. So it definitely turned out for the best. But I wouldn't say it's very... that's probably the exception rather than the rule in terms of believability. It's the ideal situation, but most people that come out of that thing don't go back, and they're worse off for it. What do you think, Dev?
It is a bit fickle. I mean, dang it, I've lost my train.
You might want to start taking notes.
Yeah, stop doing that, Dev. Cruiser, what do you think?
But I will say though, it is a good relationship. It is kind of like maybe an exception too. One thing I do want to bring up is they were happy, they were supportive of her when she threw the party, but then suddenly you have festive decorations. Suddenly they're really mad and upset. It's kind of fickle thing. Maybe it's because they really care about their family. I don't know.
So, Cruiser, what do you think?
I think it's quite possible that her parents are kind of like Amish in that way. What I was saying before. It's just the one believable case where, at least from my own personal experience, that Pinkie Pie basically got a taste of the Western world, I guess you could call it, and she enjoyed making people laugh and decided to go the different direction, but maintains a good contact with her family. Is it the exception? Yeah, probably, but I think it was for the best.
Yeah, it's definitely healthy. If everybody in that situation could do what Pinky did, we'd have a lot less broken families. So let's move on there. Who do we got left? We've covered Twilight. Let's talk about Twilight with her crazy, super adventurous parents, but a lot more of the jumping off of a cliff in a barrel kind of thing, and not the hey, let's go hang out at a resort in our flower print polos down in Florida.
Well, I'll just come out and say that of all the characters, Twilight probably has the best relationship with her parents, both in terms of getting along and help.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely have a great family dynamic there. She's got a brother that she gets along with, a sister-in-law that she gets along with. Her parents are eccentric, and we acknowledge that, but that's why we love them. That's all I'm seeing out of that. They definitely get pulled in their own separate directions, but there's nothing ever lost there. Cruiser, what do you think?
I definitely would say she has the ideal relationship that any kind of family would like. We even got a chance to see that she and her brother had a healthy competition together with the Sibling Supreme. Even though he is motion sickness. So maybe not so regal after all.
Well, you can be regal and still get motion sickness. Those are two completely separate things.
I know, but when you see someone who's supposed to be tough and worthy and leadership, and then he's barfing because a ship is moving, I find that a little funny.
Yeah, people also don't expect, somebody like me to, fawn over cute rabbits and be afraid of spiders.
Fair enough.
It happens.
But the one thing, though, is that while Twilight's mom, I think, got planned development, her dad, not so much. We know that she's adventurous, but her dad, the only thing we really know is that he likes bingo. That's about it. And with adventurous, there's so much, you can do with that. With bingo, not so much.
Well, you get that does happen though. You get somebody that's really adventurous and outgoing, and somebody that just wants to hang out. I mean, that's the relationship I'm in right now, pretty much. There's times where I want to go out and be super social and extroverted. Usually, Heather just wants to relax and lay down and watch a movie or something like that. Heather is also way more likely to do something like skydiving or going on a roller coaster or eating spicy foods or watching a scary movie, and I can't handle any of that nonsense.
That actually brings up a point I wanted to make too. It's like it seems like they really go with the flow, like cut loose and everything like that. Like probably the only sour spot that we do see with them is that they can't really see when Twilight is actually getting upset when things aren't going her way. Like on the Zeppelin, all the activities she wanted to do with her parents. Like,
oh no, they saw she was getting frustrated, and they gave her, everybody in that family gave her an out twice, and she denied it every single time and bottled it up. Princesses aren't supposed to act like this, and then she freaking exploded. Nah, that one's on Twilight.
I can barely remember that episode. I'm sorry.
Well, congratulations, Dev. You lose. But is it so? We've covered it, whether or not it's believable. Is it healthy? Is it good? What could possibly go wrong in something like that?
Well, it's, how should I say this? The characteristics or maybe the personalities of her parents are good, but Twilight's is unhealthy because we saw how obsessed she gets over lists and maintaining a schedule. Her parents, as Deb put it, kind of go with the flow.
So is that the fault of her parents, or, what did her parents do to cause that kind of thing? Or is that not just a Twilight kind of thing? I'm pretty sure it's just a Twilight kind of thing.
I think it's just a Twilight thing because
I think so too.
Once she got into being Celestia's student, she probably just put on this standard for herself that she has to please the princess. And then maybe, in a way, her becoming a princess and being a Celestia put that parents' expectation on Twilight. Oh, princess can't act like this,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on real quick here to, I don't know why we saved the hardest one for last, Applejack. So Applejack is a really interesting situation here because she's an orphan. She's got Granny Smith, and in some ways she's had to raise Apple Bloom as a guardian herself. Between her and Big Macintosh. So we've got this orphan situation here. How do we think that came about? How many modern orphans do we know that kind of had to rise to that occasion? And is it believable? What do you think, Cruizer?
I don't know, Brony. You tell us.
What do you mean? Why don't I tell you?
Well, you moved out. You live down here away from your parents. Does that make you feel like somewhat of an orphan?
No, not really. Because I'm still I don't have the best relationship with my siblings, but that's because of stuff that my siblings did. I get a little upset with my parents sometimes in the way that they support what my brothers specifically do. I don't know why I'm saying siblings. All of my sisters are amazing people, but my parents didn't have any good sons. So with the way that they support my brothers, even when they can't afford to, and in a way at my expense as well. I get upset over them for that because they're doing this thing with like Zephyr Breeze and nothing's ever getting better, and they're getting too old for what am I saying? They are too old for this crap. But no, I don't think I relate to Applejack's situation in the least bit.
Well, I can say something. I'm not an orphan myself, but I did have to deal with divorced parents, and one thing I kind of did have to shoulder was trying to have the love of both of them and cherishing the love on each side as I had to go back and forth. And one thing I did learn was like trying to learn from their mistakes, or like also to the burdens that they also learned by proxy, the burdens that they went through with their divorce, like the broken relationships and all that. So one thing I did learn by proxy was trying to make sure I didn't really burn bridges or anything like that, and just always make sure that I'm looking out for both like the short term and long term in a way with other people. And I guess I could translate that to Applejack. Like once her parents were gone, we saw like some point to watch over me. She became helicopter parenting and all that. Now it's up to debate whether it's because of the parents being lost or just general sibling worrying about a younger sibling like that. But I would say in a way, like maybe it is the parents gone, because we did see in Going to Seed, like they were loving parents, like they did interact with them in the short time there, but so little we can't really determine.
Yeah, so what's really odd, and this is going to sound super bad, is what I see in the Apples is that they learned the most with their parents passing, because now they're thrust into this situation where we have to take care of our family. And a lot of people that I've seen get thrust into that situation don't make it out. And if they do, they are not better people for it. There's a lot of trauma in there, but, Granny Smith obviously rose to the occasion in taking care of Big Macintosh, Apple Bloom, and Applejack. And, Big Macintosh and Applejack obviously realized that they had to do their part to support their family at an early age and develop that work ethic out of that. It's definitely better to have both of your parents, both your biological parents, if that's option is available. Most people that go into that situation usually come out with baggage, I guess is the best way to put it, that affects them later on in life. But so we got an interesting case of Applejack not having that kind of support, but coming out better for it. It's one of those occasions you hear about rising above the circumstances that you came from. And what was that old Mewtwo quote? It's not where you came from that matters, but the choices that you make with what you are now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Cruiser?
I guess that makes sense, but I think also we should probably ask what kind of parent Granny was in this case. I mean, since she did, in fact, raise them. And if that's the case, then I would say she did a good job, but I do have to wonder if perhaps maybe another reason why Big Mac is so quiet is because he didn't have his folks. I mean, sure, we know that AJ is the one who got him to basically shut up, but he was like that his entire life now, ever since. So I have to wonder, would they have turned out any different if their parents were still around?
I think in a way, because they were raised by Granny and focused mostly on the farm, you could say in a way that they became a little rigid in their lifestyles. Like AJ has to tend to the farm and their livelihood and now look out for Apple Bloom, while Big Mac also too has to look out for the farm, and then like they made that mistake long ago that got him to essentially be quiet.
They definitely got stuck in their ways and were kind of on the path to becoming like Pinkie Pie's parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think anyway.
And there's only so much Granny could do because she is just really old now. There's not much she can really say beyond the guidance and the Master Smackdown once they're back from their shenanigans. But even still, I think AJ, both of them have maybe in a way. Well, I think AJ, just with some of her actions, like she just gets way too far and takes like the main six or the people to finally talk her down.
Yeah. But even so, even without her parents, the Apple family is huge. It spans Equestria. So I definitely doubt there was ever a lack of support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the support was there, but I think it's just the love and the nurturing that was probably absent and left a hole in them.
So,
but it's really up to speculation because we barely see them.
Yep. So I can tell we're going to go over time. So we're going to make this last point really quick. Because in Season 9, we had an episode dedicated to parental relationships. What was the title of the episode? I forgot it. Scootaloo. We met Scootaloo's parents finally.
Crusade.
The Last Crusade. What do we think about Scootaloo's parents, Cruizer?
They're dicks.
All right, explain yourself.
They've been gone for so long. They come back, and I was like, okay, now we're just going to take you out of what you spent so long to build.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of expect her to go along with it. Now, granted, sure, she's a child, she kind of has to, but Scootaloo is a rare exception. She actually built a business with her friends, and you're just asking her to leave it because you say so, essentially.
Yeah, and it took them a long time to understand that what they do and what the Cutie Mark Crusaders do are very comparable.
Mm-hmm.
So, but once they understood that, then it all clicked in and everything worked out for the best. Dev, what do you think?
The worst, well, except I guess for Grandpere before he atoned, but they are the worst.
Alrighty then. That's really harsh. I think.
Well, okay, if you want me to elaborate.
Well, of course.
Like Cruiser brought up, like they just were disconnected for so long, and we even got implications from Scootaloo that she never really had the best relationship with her parents, because I think, what was it, the washouts, that she said like she never really got any encouragement.
Oh no, that was in the Rainbow Dash Parents episode.
Oh, so parental guidance. Like Scootaloo said she never really had anyone to cheer her on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, is it because like they cared too much about the job and not about her? And I think there are implications of that, because like they leave her with her aunts, but apparently the aunts have to pass her to other guardians because they have their own lives. So it's like their Scootaloo's parents aren't even making sure their child is actually safe and secure.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just throw it onto other people and just focus on their jobs. Then suddenly, after all this time, after not seeing them, and apparently even though Scootaloo actually communicates them with letters, still for some reason, like they just want to take her away.
Yeah, well, they wanted to reunite the family, and they got a chance to settle down, which they said in the episode is what they were looking for. So I don't think they're malicious in the least bit. They had...
I just think they're entirely neglectful. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, they had a job that was necessary to Equestria. They studied animals to help make Equestria safer. It was convoluted nonsense, but that's the long and short of it. So they needed to do that. The problem is that if you're going to have a career like that, you really can't have a family. Having a family is not conducive to having a career where you need to travel all the time. So,
and to kind of put that into, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
freelancers, politicians, military, definitely not good. Many types of scientists, definitely not good for having a family, because if you're going to have a family, you need to give your kids grounding. Kids need consistency, or they spend most of their time confused and they don't turn out right. Is the blunt way to say it. In all the sociological readings I have done, this is what I have seen, and the patterns that we can, for the most part, acknowledge in our real life. Now, but they definitely didn't give her a choice in the matter. There was a vast lack of communication that should have been there, and we've all seen parents like that. But usually it's done in a selfish, malicious sense, and I don't think that was the case here, but very much mishandled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to kind of put it in perspective here, what you were saying about if you're going to have a particular type of career, you really shouldn't, have that kind of family. Ozzy Osbourne and his wife Sharon, even though he was a touring rock star, they actually brought their kids with them on tour. They knew they had to raise them. So you can arguably say they were better parents than Scootaloos.
Oh, no, the heck they were not. Have you seen the way that we had a reality show about that? No. Okay, I'm putting the brakes on that one. The Osbournes are not better parents than Scootaloos.
I don't know, Brony. You've seen people fake stuff for reality television.
I suppose that is, but I'm willing to believe the script was there, but the characters were real. That's what I'm pretty sure is the case.
It's an unfortunate reality there.
Yeah, well, that's it for the characters that we wanted to cover. Normally by now, 10 minutes ago we would have gone into the audience participation section, but you know what? Forget about it. We'll go a little bit over time. Cruiser, you've been watching the chat for us. Have we had any interesting comments or questions in the time that we've been talking?
Okay, here's one from Quiet Storm. Here's a harsh question. Would it be better if they weren't alive? Referring to, I believe, Applejack's parents.
We were talking about that a little bit, and I don't think we have any way of knowing. Like, that's one of those things that's really almost worth not thinking about, because we just, we can't change the past and what the circumstances are in the present that came from the past. So it's usually just better to look forward. You got to work with what you got and not think about whether or not it would have been better another way. I'm sorry, that's not very much of an answer, but that's my answer. What do you think, Dev?
I think he was talking about Scoot's parents, actually, not Applejack's.
Oh, okay. That may be the case then. If that's the case, then what do you say if it was Scootaloos?
Well, I don't wish tragedy on people. Not always, anyway. There's very few instances in which I will wish tragedy on somebody. No, I think the smart thing to do would be to find out that, like, as soon as you find out that Scootaloo has been conceived, you better start training and understudy. And once Scootaloo is born, that's it. You got to grow your roots right there. That would have been the better thing to do.
Okay, Rusty Hell 93 brought up one that I actually wanted to. What about Starlight and Sunburst parents?
Ooh, that's a good one. We completely forgot about those nutcases.
So Rusty Hell.
There's also Filthy
Rusty
Rich
Hell
and
93.
Spoiled Milk.
Hold on, we gotta give Rusty Hell 93. You had the best question of the night. Congratulations.
Yeah. So what do you, Cruiser? What do you think about those guys?
I like what DWK had to say about them.
Oh my god, can you go one stream without jumping on his? Never mind.
Okay. Starlight's dad is definitely obnoxious, and I can see her becoming a bit resentful towards her dad because of it, because it's kind of similar to what Rainbow went through, only not as loud, I guess you could say, or public for people to notice. He never let her grow up, or never understood that she grew up. Mm-hmm.
And Sunburst, the Stellar Flare, never wanted to micromanage every aspect of her life, and her son is a part of her life, so therefore she must also micromanage her adult son.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
Her dad does dress very snappy, though. I still have to give DWK that.
All right, sure. Yeah. Dev, do you have any thoughts?
You're asking me to remember something from Season 8?
Oh my gosh. It was only a year ago, dude. All right, next question.
I only see each episode once. That's how little I care about it.
All right.
Okay, something here from Paladin Pony. Brony Buck, do you think we know more about Twilight's family because she's the main character?
No, actually. I don't think we know any more about Twilight's family than we do about the rest of them. Except maybe Rarity.
like I think they have technically the most screen time, just because you see them like in our Twilight's flashbacks and all that. But aside from Once Upon a Zeppelin, they didn't really get any development that much.
And Dev also brought up another character, and that was Diamond Tiara's parents. And that's actually an interesting question, because comparing her dad to her mom, it's like, how did that happen?
Well, that's exactly how that happened. They're definitely absentee. They're definitely too busy running their own business. They've got grounding and they've got roots, and they're there. But if you're too busy running your business to see that your wife is, micromanaging everything and is constantly power hungry and just being a horrible person to everybody, and that your daughter is emulating that, and you're off doing your own thing as the father, then yeah, you're gonna get somebody exactly like Diamond Tiara, who's just really good at being a sociopath, frankly. And
I was referring to how did a respectable and nice person end up with someone who's quite frankly a snot.
I believe I'm gonna say two words that are gonna be super offensive, but everything's gonna make sense after I say them. Gold digger.
That's offensive.
Some people it might be. I don't know. I don't really care either, but better to give somebody a cushion before I punch them. Let's see here.
Iris Prince said, "What about Celestia and Luna's parents?"
What about Celestia and Luna's parents? They've never been mentioned in the least bit.
No, they have not. I mean, it'd be kind of curious to see if they did have parents, but it's barely even an afterthought.
Yeah, they were never brought up, so I don't think so.
All right, headcanon.
I'm all for headcanon, and the headcanon I go for is just Faust is alicorns are more godlike, and Faust is their mother. That's really it.
Here's the real headcanon. Here's what really happened, right? Celestia and Luna's parents were normal ponies. I'm going to say they were unicorns for the heck of it. But we know that frog in the throat again. We know that those two came out as alicorns. So as soon as they're born, and a couple of months later, when unicorns start having those magic surges, Celestia accidentally made the sun go supernova and then had to recreate Equestria in her image.
What about poor Luna?
She was just there.
Luna's a tulpa. She was spawned from Celestia's imagination. I'm going off the deep end now.
Yeah, I'm about to push you off the deep end for insulting that
princess. You can't push me somewhere I've already jumped off onto.
Fine, I'll just drop a stick of dynamite down there then.
I will face backwards and give you both those birds as I drop into the abyss.
What about someone else here asked, what about Princess Ember's dad?
Another case of not having enough faith in your daughter or your offspring or whatever. I suppose it could go both ways with son or daughter, but that's what happens. That's exactly what happens when you don't give them enough room and have faith to believe that they can rise to an occasion. Is that
I thought it wasn't because she didn't rise to an occasion, but he just forbid it just because
she was too small. He didn't believe she could do it. So one of two things is going to happen there. You're either going to get they never rise to the occasion like Zephyr Breeze and Fluttershy, or they're going to go off and do their own thing like and put themselves in great danger like Apple Bloom did in Some Pony to Watch Over Me. You're going to get one of those two things. And which one is largely going to be based on individual choice.
Okay, here's one for you. What about Yona's parents?
Do we know Yona's parents? She's not related to Rutherford.
I believe her parents made it a cameo when they had to get their permission slips signed for something. But the general idea though is yaks as parents in that culture.
I do not want to think about that.
If it makes you feel any better, Brony and I started out not liking the Yaks either.
I still don't like him, so there you go. That's my stance.
I'm still not fond of him either.
No, but there was a moment, though, where you hated the show because they made you relate to them.
Yeah, that was Not Looking for Trouble. And I'll get to that episode eventually, hopefully within the next 2 years here, given the pace that I'm at right now. But I'm going to not talk about the pace of my making episodes before I make myself angry. I think that's all we got, unless did somebody else come up with a question while we were talking?
Yeah, DJ asks, what about King Thorax's mom?
Y'all are trolling me now?
Well, I guess technically she wins worst parent by default in this show.
Yeah, probably.
If it is Chrysalis, because we don't know if it's really Chrysalis, because what's her name? Ocellus has a fairly normal family structure. She's got parents and siblings.
Yeah, that to me doesn't really make much sense, though, considering what they presented before.
Somebody's got to make a decision here, but given we're on the last episode, I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I'm just gonna. Once this show is over, I'm probably just gonna discard season 8.
All right. Well, I think there's nothing else to really go on there. Shall we wrap it up, gentlemen?
Yeah, I say so.
All right.
This was an interesting episode of Brony discussions.
Yeah.
And Brony, I told you, if you want a controversial topic, you got to go with shipping, Starlight, or Rainbow Dash.
Yeah, well, everybody is welcome to make suggestions by, dropping me an email, tweeting at me. We're on Tumblr.
I've been giving you them, and you have not been using.
And if you want to come on these live streams, I'd love to have you. We just need to have you on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who make this content possible, especially those guys at the $10 and up tier. These guys are Autoknight, Sodden Girder, Senko, Jennan, Kellogg, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, Mike's Geek World, and the Equestrian City Heroverse series. Thank God I got through it that time without getting a frog in my throat. If you want to hang out on more of my live streams, we're going to be back next Friday with Friday Night Fights, so stay tuned for that. Or Princess Heather Blossom's channel on Saturdays at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. She does crocheting streams, and I moderate the chat there, so lots more audience interaction if you want that kind of thing. Thank you guys so much for coming out and talking with me about this. I think we agreed with each other a little too much for my taste, but other than that, I had fun. What do you guys think?
It's always fun to do these.
All right. Deb, nice having you. All right. Yeah, I remember that word. I remember that word from my days in Hapkido, but whatever. Thanks so much for coming on, Dev. It's always nice to have you.
Also, Chipshigo.
All right. And, you all have a great night out there, and I will see you on the next one.